Next up to meet the government ministers to pitch their case are Colin and Edward. These professional lobbyists are looking for a large proportion of Scotland's land for grouse moor management. But will the ministers bite?
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Edward.
And we'd like between 12 to 18% of Scotland's land to be managed for grouse shooting.
Now, what is grouse shooting, I hear you ask?
Now, that's a very good question, Edward. We want to manage the land to ensure there are lots of surplus grouse to be shot by our friends and paid guests for sport. This will begin on what we call the glorious 12th of August and last 4 months every year when we'll shoot lots of this iconic bird out the sky.
It will be a very exclusive countryside experience.
Very exclusive. And our shooting estates will add around £23 million to the economy.
Imagine if you had that much money.
Think of us as guardians of the countryside. The more intensively we manage it, the more grouse we'll have for shooting and the more we'll benefit from this land.
You'll soon start to think that this is what Scotland is supposed to look like. The patches of burnt heather, medicated grit stations, the snares and traps.
And much, much more. We would like to thank you for taking the time to speak to us today, and we look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
A confident start by the grouse moor lobbyists. But have they done enough to convince the ministers? First up is Minister for Land Reform and the Economy.
Colin, Edward, thanks for an interesting presentation. You said you'd need maybe 12 to 18% of Scotland's land for this. That's a lot of land.
Yes, that's somewhere around half the size of Wales.
And your 23 million figure, you're right, that would be a lot of money for me, but as a percentage of Scotland's economy, that's only 0.02% of the economy for an area around half the size of Wales?
Yes.
OK. Let's put it another way. If Scotland's economy was the size of Ben Nevis, then your contribution would be the size of this bottle of water. I mean, forestry alone is several times better for the economy, for that land size. I'm sorry, guys. I'm struggling here.
And we'd only need a few government subsidies.
Sorry, guys. Thanks for your time today, but I'm afraid I'm out.
The lobbyists have lost the numbers game, failing to land their First Minister, who was not convinced about the benefit to Scotland's people. But will they fare better with the others? Next up, the Government Minister for the Environment.
You said that the land might be intensively managed to increase grouse numbers, yeah? And you're going to do that by burning heather, by medicated grit stations.
And hundreds of kilometres of bulldozed tracks across the uplands. So there's easy access for the land managers and the shooters.
It says here that the land that you're talking about has a lot of deep peat in it. Scotland's peat stores about 25 times more carbon than all the forests in the UK put together. Now, in these times of climate crisis, are you going to put that at risk?
Well, we would try not to. Only around about 40% of the burned area would be on top of deep peat. It will, however, make the environment very suitable for grouse, an iconic Scottish bird.
And the tens of thousands of medicated grit stations would help keep their numbers unnaturally high, so we can shoot more of them.
I was already concerned that you were going to turn these moors into some sort of manscape. But now you're telling me that all of this environmental damage is worth it. And this mass outdoor medication, I mean, it can damage the ecosystem. Next thing you're going to say is you're going to shoot tons of lead shot all over the countryside.
Yes, and if you just give us a chance, we can definitely confirm that.
I'm sorry, guys. It's not worth the environmental cost for me. So therefore, I'm out.
The lobbyists didn't have the grit to win over the Environment Minister and have lead shot themselves in the foot. But all is not lost. If the Minister for Scotland's Wildlife and Tourism is impressed with their credentials, they may yet win government support.
So, we know that grouse moors will be good for grouse, until they get shot, obviously. But what about other wildlife? You mentioned traps and snares. What are those going to be used for?
Well, they will be used for legitimate forms of pest control to keep problem species in line.
Yes, we trap, kill and shoot hundreds of thousands of foxes, stoats, weasels, crows and even mountain hares to make sure there's even more grouse to shoot for sport.
And we don't like to talk about it much. But those pesky birds of prey, well, they might not do so well in areas dominated by grouse moors. But don't worry, it is deep within the countryside and, well, we don't like to advertise this point. You could keep promoting Scotland as a land of wildlife lovers.
You said you were going to be guardians of the countryside. Is this what you really meant?
Well, yes, but think about the benefits.
And the stink pits too.
The what?
Piles of dead animals that will lure more animals into our snares.
Is that even legal?
That's a very good question.
OK, guys, look, I think I've heard enough. This sounds like cruelty on an industrial scale. I get that you'll be bringing in some people for shooting grouse, but using just some of this land to protect our wildlife instead will do far more. Wildlife tourism brings in over 5 times more money than your figures. Unless you can get rid of all the unsustainable ideas that we have talked about, grouse moor management just isn't worth it. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you for your time today, but we should not be using our land for this. Yeah, I'm out, like, out.
If driven grouse moors never existed, you wouldn't let them start up today. It's now time to revive Scotland's moors and end the circle of destruction. Sign up at revive.scot for our people, our wildlife and the environment.
So guys, how do you think it went then?
Yeah, I felt it went really well.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, yeah.
Yeah, very happy.